Alright, we're back. Our dough has had a chance for its initial rise, and now we're going to get ready to build our cinnamon rolls. We have a quarter cup of sugar, to which we're adding a teaspoon of cinnamon, mixing this together. This is going to be sprinkled on the dough once it's been rolled out and buttered, and then we'll be cutting those rolls from one long tube into individual buns. Okay, so we put that off to the side. We have about 3 tablespoons of butter here melted. Don't want to run out in the middle of the job. We're going to be putting this into an 8-inch pan. And with a brush, I want to make sure that the pan is coated on the bottom and the sides. We're not making a cinnamon roll that has a thick syrupy bottom, kind of more like a monkey bread, so we're not going to be sprinkling a bunch of cinnamon and sugar inside of that. Sometimes leads to more of a burned mess than you might anticipate. Alright, it's time to take a look at our dough. The dough has increased quite a bit in size, so now we can punch that to deflate it down, and that lets some of the CO2 out, carbon dioxide. That's what's led to the initial rise. Can make this dough stretch out so that after we shape it and we put it into the pan the way we want, on the second rise it's going to rise a little bit easier. So if that first rise took a full hour, which we hope we can get done in maybe 45 minutes in class using the proof box, the second rise only needs about 30 minutes, so it's a quicker process. This dough needs to be rolled out, so we're going to need a rolling pin and a little bit of flour, but we don't want this dough to get too dry. Put some flour down on your surface. We're rolling on granite. And again, nice stretchy dough. You can see the finger indentations left behind. Alright. The size of the dough that we're looking for is about the size of a piece of paper. It's 8.5 by 11. So we are more interested in getting kind of a rectangular shape than being just committed to one size. It has to be a certain size, but it's a good goal, the 8.5 by 11. So this might actually not fit on the camera's view. You can see I'm actually trying to be as gentle as I can with the dough and rolling it, and the fact that I'm just kind of lightly pushing on the rolling pin and not pushing down hard on the handles. And I can stretch this out because of that developed gluten has good elasticity, and though this doesn't fit so well in the camera, I think we're pretty close to what we need. So I want to turn this lengthwise, or hamburger and hot dog, I think we say. And we're going to paint some butter on, sprinkle some cinnamon sugar. So the butter can go on pretty generously. When your butter melts, certain parts of the butter float to the surface, so it's important to kind of stir the butter a little bit as you use it. The cinnamon sugar we have is to take care of the entire cinnamon roll, so it's expected to be used. So actually we'll do this to both sides. So I have to kind of eyeball what half looks like. And again, you start with a quarter cup of sugar. So if you have measuring spoons, pull out 2 tablespoons, you're going to be fine. Okay, it's going to make a mess on your counter, but I'll flip that over. And though this is going to be rolled up, what we call jelly roll style, become a spiral and have butter and cinnamon sugar throughout the spiral. I feel like if I put butter the cinnamon sugar on both sides. It'll just increase even more so how much of this is going to kind of stick and eventually melt to make a little syrup in between the cinnamon rolls. So it's a nice coating. I want to try to put this all on this dough and not leave any for sprinkling on top, because when this is rolled up, the cinnamon sugar will be a little bit protected by the dough and won't get overheated, and I don't want to sprinkle stuff on top and have it burn. Alright, so this is what we mean by jelly roll style. Roll it up like what you might consider to be a big carpet roll, lengthwise. Okay. And this is to make 8 rolls. So we want to have our bench scraper. And you can use dental floss, of all things, to wrap around this and pull so you don't smash your dough too much. But I think you can be fine with the bench scraper. So I'm going to say that that's pretty much in half. So I don't have to get a knife out, so I can use this to cut, line those up, and that is pretty much half. Now I'm not going to cut 2 at once, just want to make sure that I was being accurate what I'm doing. So I'm going to cut those halves in half. I have 4, and if I cut those quarters, I'll have 8 pieces. Again, it might feel like you're smashing your dough quite a bit, but you can fix it once you put it in the pan. 8 pieces. Okay, so we have our pan that's buttered. I'm going to avoid putting that on the counter because there's cinnamon sugar everywhere. I don't want to get that in the bottom of the pan. Okay, I have this piece, that was the end piece, right here, because that maybe is lacking in some of the butter and cinnamon sugar. I'm going to make sure that gets in the end, and that's the other end piece. So I'm going to try to position that as well in the middle. It doesn't have to be that these aren't expected to fill up the entire pan, because they're going to grow and get a little bit bigger as they rise for a second time. But I'm going to be fine to just position these as is, a little bit of space in between. They'll spread out some during the second rising. They'll certainly spread out a little bit more as they're baking, so that you might think you could borrow from another roll and fit in 9th and a 10th bun. You might be disappointed with how that turns out, because there won't be room for these to grow. So don't pack them in tight. Try to see if you can get those end pieces more in the middle. Position everything around the side. Alright, now the fact that this takes the entirety of a block period means that we can't bake these off today. So they can get covered with saran wrap, go in the fridge, and be baked off the next day, and go in the fridge, be baked off in 2 days. We might deal with a little bit of fermentation. The fact that these have been in the fridge for 2 days, it might have a little bit of sourness, and we're hoping that the sugar is going to counteract that. So to make sure they don't grow too big and get huge, we're going to want to cover them with saran wrap. And here are our cinnamon rolls covered in saran wrap, ready to go in the fridge to hang out overnight. They're going to probably be pretty puffy in the morning. We'll check on them. The fermentation will take place in a cold environment, just a little bit slower than if these were out on a warm countertop. Do want to cover them with saran wrap, try to keep them self-contained, and we definitely don't want to be using foil, because there are acids in the sugar that would react badly with the foil, so your foil might end up kind of Swiss cheese appearance as the acids in the sugar dissolve that, and then you'd have aluminum foil in your food. So we're going to put these in the fridge overnight, see what they look like in the morning, and we'll talk later on about the baking procedures and the second rise that happens before that. And welcome back. This is what the cinnamon rolls look like after they've been put in the pan, covered with saran wrap, and gone in the fridge overnight for the second rise. They're quite a bit bigger than the size they were before they went in for that second rise, and they've been in the fridge so they're cold. So I would pull them out, let them come up to room temp for maybe a good 15-20 minutes before they go in the oven to bake, following the instructions that are on the recipe.